What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I'm back for, yes, another album review, an earlier album review. Now, there's going to be quite a few reviews coming out this upcoming week because, well, I need to get caught up on some shit. And I figured a good way to kind of get caught back up is to review an album that came out last week. And for a lot of metalheads, this was one of the big albums to come out here in the second half of 2021, and that is the latest offering from Trivium, In the Court of the Dragon. Now, before I get into a brief history about Trivium, I do kind of want to mention that Trivium has been one of my favorite bands, one of my top 15, top 20 favorites of all time. There was a period in high school where I would just listen to nothing but Trivium. Every day, every night. It was great. And this was during the era before In Waves came out, so first four Trivium albums are like classics for me in my childhood, particularly my teenage years. Now, before I get into everything else, let's talk about the history of this band. So, Trivium formed out of Florida in 2000 by drummer Travis Smith, and eventually asked young budding guitarist and vocalist Matt Heafy to join the band. Now, Matt Heafy got the gig in Trivium after he played a school talent show playing Metallica's No Leaf Clover. He was still a little kid at this point, like 13, 14 years old when he joined Trivium, so his voice wasn't quite very good at this point, but once he got older and his voice got deeper, he could actually sing. And in 2003, they released Ember to Inferno, which was kind of embracing their influences of like melodic death metal and thrash, kind of blended together. And then a couple years later, they go to Roadrunner Records, where they still are to this day, and released Ascendancy, which is probably my favorite Trivium album. Then a year after that, you get The Crusade, and then we get to Shogun, and these four albums, to me, represent the golden era of Trivium, in my personal opinion. Then, things started to taper off with In Waves, and especially with Vengeance Falls. Silence in the Snow was kind of teeing up a new sound, and then from Sin and the Sentence through to now, people have been saying they've been on a roll ever since. I did listen to a few songs off of the Sin and the Sentence, and they were pretty good, like the title track, The Heart From Your Hate, and Beyond Oblivion. I thought those were really good songs. And then I just didn't check out the rest of the album, personally. And then I only checked out the singles from What the Dead Man Say. And it's just, I don't know, Trivium really, after the golden period, after Shogun, they've really kind of fallen off the radar for me. But given how a lot of people really liked What the Dead Man Said last year, and that they actually shockingly released a new album this year, I guess I figured, why not give this band another shake and see where they are now. So after the opening track 10, which was just a needless introduction track, it goes straight into the title track, and it starts off with intense screaming from Matt Heafy before it gets quite thrashy and fun. Impressive drum work by Alex Bent, who had been in the band, who has been with the band since the Sin and the Sins, and he's a hell of a drummer coming from a band like Brain Drill and filling in for bands like Testament, Battlecross, and Decrepit Birth. So he's got a got a great pedigree in metal. So they made a good choice at picking up this young kid to be the new drummer. This song has a great melodic chorus with blast beats to add a nice contrast to the track. However, the problem I had with this song, the breakdowns were very meh. Very, very meh. But we do get some epic power metal-esque solos. Those kind of help save this song from being a mediocre track. It was a solid song to kick things off, but then, like a sword over Damocles, I think this should have been the real opening track of the album. You get a crushing riff to kind of kick things off. More thrash moments appear. Matt Heafy showing off his melodic voice quite well. I know a lot of people are not big fans of Matt Heafy's melodic vocals now, I think they go great with what they're doing, and I think Matt is a really good singer, and I feel he should get a little bit more appreciation for how good of a singer he actually is. There's some more solid solos all along the track with blast beats to go along with the solos, but then afterwards, you get some fast tremolo riffing before we get into a more, I wouldn't say technical solo, but a more chaotic solo, if that makes any sense. Feast of Fire, the guitar tuning changes significantly on this, and this was probably the most anthemic track of the album. Matt's crooning on this song a little bit, and it kind of reminds me of the groove era of Testament, like Low and some parts of the album The Gathering a little bit. More particularly the album Low, it kind of reminds me of that era in terms of the riffs and the chugs it has. But there's some nice melodic touches on this track as well. And this was actually one of the shorter songs of the entire album. A Crisis of Revelation, I really like this one. I feel like this was maybe my personal favorite song of the album because it reminded me of classic Trivium, like something off of Ascendancy to me, because it had that vibe with the thrashiness, the blasts, the riffing. Even the little breakdowns were much more well executed on here. Even some galloping riffs coming in before we get a tapping solo. Like, Corey and Matt are just two excellent guitar players, and they certainly know how to trade off of one another to showcase, like, where their influences lie. Like, Corey's definitely into the more chaotic stuff, whereas Matt definitely showcases a little bit more of the classic metal flair to his soloing. The Shadow of the Abattoir was a very unique track, because the first 2.5 minutes, it's more borderline gothic, because Matt's voice at certain points at the beginning got super low, almost to like gothic vocal terrain. But it also has a solid bass line with a nice clean guitar touch to begin. And then after those first 2.5 minutes, it gets really aggressive, big breakdown, thrash, more tasty solos as it feels like an epic battle is about to commence during this track. And then even Matt almost soars in his vocal register to close out on this song, which I think helped this song be a standout for me on this album. No Way Back Just Through, which was the shortest song of the album at under 4 minutes, started off almost like a Meshuggah or Fear Factory song. There's some power metal-esque tremolo riffs that show up, but other than that, it was just kind of just a standard meat and potatoes song. Kind of predictable in my opinion. Fall Into Your Hands, though, which was, I think, the longest song at almost 8 minutes. Great drum solo to kick things off. The guitars coming in along with a solo. More thrash energy, which is what I think makes this album way above average, is the thrash moments that still remain in Trivium's sound even through all the evolution that they've gone through over the past decade, still showing that they got thrash in their tank. And this song also at certain parts reminds me of recent Testament albums. More wonderful solo trade-offs going on between Corey and Matt, and even the symphonic ending to bring the song to a close was a nice touch to really make this song stand out. Then we kind of hit with a bit of a rock bottom with From Dawn to Decadence. I mean, the verses on this song are very well executed. They remind me of Revocation and maybe a little bit of Children of Bodom. It's so fast and aggressive. But the chorus on this one just didn't really stick out. And that was really the problem I had with the song. The choruses on this, I really did not care for. The verses, though, saved this song from being a stinker, in my personal opinion. And then we get to the final song, The Phalanx, which, this was maybe the most power metal-inspired track, because there's a little bit more of an epic quality to this. And even the beginning of this song kind of reminded me a little bit of, like, Iced Earth or even some of the more newer power metal bands, or almost power metal, like Eternal Champion or Visigoth. Kind of had that melodic flair to it, but yet it had a sinister quality to it. Again, more thrash, coming in on this song. We even get some groovy death metal inspired parts that kind of reminds me a little bit of early Decapitated, like in the way the blast beats and the riff kind of go together in like a groovy pocket. Another wonderful solo, and then even some awesome marching beats towards the end, and Matt's vocals got really gritty when this song came to a close. Like, his voice it had that gruff exterior to it, which showcases that Matt's vocal style has come a long way since he first started. So overall, In the Court of the Dragon, I mean, production-wise, I did feel like it was a bit too polished for my take. Like, I feel like there should have been a little bit more grit as far as the production goes on this album. But aside from that, I thought the majority of this album was really fucking good. Like, I think this was a great comeback for me getting back into Trivium again. I haven't checked out all of the last 2 albums, even though I probably should, because a lot of people have said that before this album came out, the 2 previous ones kind of started a trend upward for Trivium. And this album, I feel like, was a very solid release. I mean, I'm not going to say it's an amazing album by any stretch of the means. I'll say it's a solid to really good album. Couple of songs on here I could have lived without, like the title track. I mean, unless they would have made the breakdowns just a little bit more structured and a little bit more well thought out, I think the title track could have been one of the best songs of the album. It's a solid song. I guess what I would have done was, instead of doing the breakdowns, just do more solos, and I think it would have helped. No Way Back Just Through was alright, but from the Dawn to Decadence, I thought, again, the chorus of that song really bothered the shit out of me, but the verses were great. It's just, if they could have fixed a couple of mistakes they did on those 3 songs, I think this would have been among some of the best albums of the year. And for that reason, because those 3 songs had moments but would taper off at times, but everything else about this album is really good. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think this is a really good album. Don't see it making the album of the year list or even as an honorable mention. I mean, it could be an honorable mention, but still, I do feel like this is way better than, like, the first couple of albums of the last decade. Way better than In Waves, especially way better than Vengeance Falls and Silence in the Snow. However, I do need to check out all of Sin and the Sins and What the Dead Man Say to kind of see if this album ranks in comparison to those 2. Does it rank in comparison to the first 4 to me? Absolutely not. Does it have to? Not really, but I do see that this album kind of brought me back into the fold a little bit with Trivium, because, like I said, after Shogun and after hearing stuff off of In Waves, I kind of wrote Trivium off for a little while, but now I am back into the fold and I couldn't be happier. This was a really good album. What did you guys think of In the Core of the Dragon by Trivium? Let me know in the comments below. And as far as what I'm going to be reviewing soon, well, I got a couple of albums that actually came out this weekend that I'm going to be checking out and reviewing. What are those albums? Stick around and find out. But until then, horns high, and I will see you soon.
Hells, do you know how to use
Dude! Really? I was literally in the freaking menu. God.
Ow!
I literally just freaking spawned.
Well, Tails, time to die.
No one isn't! No one isn't!
Why is everybody coming over here?
Yeah, wait.
No!
What?
We're gonna have a nice day.
We're not
together.
open
Is this
right
our
now.
First date?
We're not open here, mister. Damn it! What the? No fire!
I died from my own grenade!
Can the fire go away, please? Thank you.
Taking the big
What?
Oh my.
The pigeon struck again!